Yeah, eat, sleep, fantasy, you rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs, better follow the conversation with
John,
Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation, we doing what we like. Tune in every week, guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy, football enthusiasts, I know you plan to be joining us on Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Yeah, Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Eat, Sleep, Fantasy.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Eat, Sleep, Fantasy Football Podcast, also known as the solo of fantasy football podcasts. I say that because tonight I will be joined by none other than Christian Brito.
My name is Jeff.
Of Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Yes, that's me. You can follow me at CBrito Fantasy. You can follow our podcast at Eat, Sleep, FF. I'm here doing a lovely solo podcast tonight because I wanted to make sure that you guys got your weekly mock draft. I'm switching it up just a little bit this week, and we're going to be doing a Dynasty format mock draft. Okay, so I'm going to split this in two ways. I'm going to do a shorter, the first 8 or 10 rounds of a regular Dynasty startup. And then I'm going to give you 2 or 3 rounds of a Dynasty rookie-only draft. Okay, so we're going to split this into 2 parts, 2 separate mock drafts in one episode. And I wanted to focus on this because we kept getting requests for, can you give me some ideas for Dynasty and Keeper Leagues? We put out the last episode, myself and John, with some tips and some ideas for those. But then I wanted to get a little more specific and give you very detailed descriptions of a few players in these formats, right? You guys want to know about the rookies. You guys want to know about the David Montgomerys and the Josh Jacobs and the Dwayne Haskins. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, I've got a little housekeeping for you.
Housekeeping, you want me for pillow?
please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
Housekeeping, you want me to jerk you off?
Okay, a few things. 1, if you have not, for some reason, signed up for our draft kit, checked out our draft kit, you need to do so right now. eatsleepfantasy.com/draft kit, or you can just click the banner right there on our website. It's $20. It's going to be updated all throughout the preseason. It's the big blue and pink button on the main page. Make sure to check that out. If you aren't part of Eat Nation, you can do that right there. Subscribe to Eat Nation. You can do so for free and check out our rankings and get some extra bonus features on our website. And you can make sure to do that there. And last but not least, drop us a review on iTunes. We really appreciate those. It really helps other people find our podcast. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, I'm confident in myself and that I can do a good podcast by myself, but I implore you to please listen to other podcasts with myself and my other co-hosts. That we do a good job of complimenting each other, and I ask that you please listen to more examples of us and give us a try. We're a little bit different of a fantasy football podcast. We bring a little bit of a twist. We want to make sure that when you're listening, you're having fun, and that's our whole goal in doing these shows is we want to have fun doing it, and we want to make sure that you guys are getting through material that's enjoyable to listen to, which, come to think about it, it's probably just fucking better with me by myself. You don't have to endure Dale. You don't have to hear John's garbage-ass opinions about Junior Mints being like a top fucking 5 movie theater candy. Get the fuck out of here with that. You just listen to me, write opinions, the best rankings, the biggest penis on the show for sure. You just do that, and we're golden. So let's get into a mock draft. I really hope Dale does the editing. I really hope he doesn't come in and chime in on any of this fucking bullshit. But
I'm here and I'm listening.
anyways, what we're doing on our mock draft, I'm going to do a Dynasty League, 12-team league. I'm going to randomize our draft position, and I'll post this draft on our Twitter account and our Facebook account when I'm done. Let's see here. Our random draft position is we're drafting from the 7 spot. I'm doing 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 2 flexes, and we'll probably just go through maybe 2 bench spots and start there since I want to get through a couple of mock drafts here. So I'm going to start the simulator, and what I'm doing here is the Draft Wizard on Fantasy Pros. We are all here rankers on Fantasy Pros, and we've been contributing with them and partnered with them in that respect for a while now, and we love their drafting wizard that they have on Fantasy Pros. So that's a nice little tool that you can use as well. All right, so through the first 6 picks, we had Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Juju Smith-Schuster, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Hopkins, and Odell Beckham. You're seeing a little bit of wide receivers go earlier slightly than you might in some of these redraft leagues or leagues that you don't have to worry as much about age. So Juju went early and Beckham still going early. I have a guy here still on the board that I love. I love a lot for this season. I love a lot for the future because he can do it all. And this is a half PPR league that we're drafting in. So he's going to have a lot of catches. And that's Alvin Kamara. Super easy pick for me at the 7 spot. Still very young. He's 24 years old, which is a factor for me. It's not the end-all, be-all in a dynasty league like I mentioned yesterday, but it is a factor for me. So I'm just going to quickly hit the Alvin Kamara button. There are other guys that are interesting, like Michael Thomas, who's 26, Devontae Adams, who's 26, and Mike Evans, who are 25. Those guys are all pretty young still at the wide receiver position. You've got running backs like Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon still on the board. And yes, that's awesome, but I much rather have Alvin Kamara here. Great offense, young, super talented, one of my top 3 players on the board actually available at the 7 spot. So that is an easy draft for me. And so a few picks go in between our next couple picks, and I'll give you an idea of what happened here. So Devontae Adams, Joe Mixon, Michael Thomas, Patrick Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill round out the first round. We've got a nice coupling of running backs and wide receivers in that first round with 1 quarterback that got drafted in Mahomes. No shocker that Mahomes got drafted in the first round. He's super young. Obviously, at 23 years old at the quarterback position, maybe you're drafting an elite top 3 quarterback for years to come. Maybe not. It's not something that I particularly will do. I, even in dynasty leagues, tend to piece together the quarterback position. So we'll just kind of, move on. I'm not taking a quarterback there. I will do the same thing in dynasty that I do in any other league. And some people may be shaking their finger at me. No, you got to get a young guy. If I get the value, sure. You got to get the value in a dynasty league. If I see Deshaun Watson dropping, maybe I'll get him, but we'll see what happens. Second round, Mike Evans taken at the 2-1, and then kind of a small little run here at running back, Nick Chubb, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, and David Johnson go. And so I am left with some interesting decisions here because I have a bunch of, do I go with age? Do I go with talent? Do I go with proven commodities? So I'm going to give you the wide receivers that are on the board here in the second round for me. Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Antonio Brown, and Stefon Diggs are the top 5 available wide receivers. All of the tight ends are still on the board, and only quarterback taken so far is Patrick Mahomes. And then at the running back position, we have 9 taken, but we still have on the board Dalvin Cook, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, and Kerryon Johnson. Now, I have been on record for a while now that I am a James Conner believer, not just for this year, not just for last year, but moving forward, even long term. I actually believe that not just because of the system, I think James Conner is every bit as good. Maybe not at 100% of what Le'Veon Bell is, but 95% of what Le'Veon Bell is, and in the same situation that Le'Veon Bell was in. James Conner is 24 years old, and even if this wasn't a Dynasty League, if this was just a Standard League, I would strongly consider James Conner here. If this was a regular league, Julio Jones would be in my consideration here. Antonio Brown would be in my consideration here. Now, those are wide receivers that are 30 and 31 years old. I like them, but not more than the 24 or 23-year-old running back who I think will actually be the best value, not even looking at age. Just if it was whatever, I would rather have James Conner. Add on to that the fact that he is this young and could be a staple for my team for a long time. I like James Conner here. I'm a little worried that I won't have one of these elite top 12 wide receivers if I come back around, because usually I piece together wide receiver and running back. It's what I've been doing in a lot of my drafts. But when I get 2 of my top 5 running backs in the first 2 rounds, and they're both under 25, I'm going to take that. So this is my going with the value. I'm drafting James Conner. I started my team with Alvin Kamara and James Conner. That's a lot of catches. That's a lot of opportunity. That's just a lot of everything that I'm looking for in my team. So no tight ends went off the board before me, but a couple of tight ends just went off the board after me. I'm going to give you the next picks that happened there. But before I do, let's talk a little bit about one of our sponsors, Nitrogen Sports. Nitrogen Sports is the oldest and the #1 Bitcoin betting sportsbook today. If you want to access Nitrogen Sports, all you got to do is actually go to our website, eatsleepfantasy.com, and they're right there on the banner. Or you can go to nitrogensports.eu, and that's their main website. They've got betting on everything. Everything. Basketball, football, baseball, golf, tennis, hockey, mixed martial arts, esports, whatever you're into betting, they got it on there. They use Bitcoin, which we have actually been using lately. And if you ask Dale anything about, they are, it's awesome to do. So they've got free pools with free buy-ins with a guaranteed $2,000 in prizes. Okay, that's one. They've got $75,000 in guaranteed prizes in NFL Survivor pools. So if you've ever wanted to try sports betting, this is a great kind of gateway to that. Nitrogen Sports, check them out, nitrogensports.eu. Complete betting odds for all American sports. Check them out, nitrogensports.eu. All right, so let's continue back to my 3rd round pick. After I took James Conner, Dalvin Cook, Julio Jones, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, and Amari Cooper wrapped out the second round, and then Kenny Golladay, Le'Veon Bell, George Kittle, Antonio Brown, Brandon Cooks, who I was hoping for, and Kerryon Johnson wrapped up the rest of the 3rd round before me. And so now I'm in a position where I need to figure out what I want here. And so Deshaun Watson in the 3rd round, even though I didn't want a quarterback is interesting. Zach Ertz in the 3rd round, very interesting. Still 28, still has some time on him. But I have a couple of guys at the wide receiver position that I'm very interested in that are still borderline wide receiver ones in T.Y. Hilton, Adam Thielen, A.J. Green. They're all under 30. But I have a guy here that I think is going to be a part of a top 3 NFL offense in 2019 that I think will be a top 3 NFL offense for a couple years to come. And he's the #1 option on that offense in T.Y. Hilton. Plus, he went to my alma mater, FIU. So T.Y. Hilton it is at my 3rd spot. kind of factoring everything in. Make sure that you're looking at everything. You're looking at tiers. Him and Adam Thielen were the last of my tier 2-ish wide receivers available, whereas at the running backs, there was only really, the rookies plus Leonard Fournette and Marlon Mack, so it was a little thinner there. A bunch of wide receivers and running backs still going off the board after me, so let's recap what happened after my first 3 picks. So my first 3 picks so far, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, and T.Y. Hilton. Let's go into the end of the 3rd round. Zach Ertz, Adam Thielen, A.J. Green, DJ Moore, and Calvin Ridley. I like DJ Moore there at the back of the 3rd round. To start the 4th round, Robert Woods. I like that too. I was kind of hoping he would drop a little bit. Robert Woods is a good target there. 27 years old. An offense that will probably be top 10 for sure, maybe top 5 again. And he is, if not the number 1, but maybe number 2, depending on how you look at it, wide receiver there. But he should be in for another couple good years in a row. Robert Woods, man, I'm sad that I wasn't able to get him at that spot. All right, and then so Robert Woods starts the 4th round. David Montgomery, again, unfortunate that the rookie running backs that are the lead rookie running backs went to start the 4th round, but David Montgomery and Josh Jacobs just went, followed by Sonny Michel and Aaron Jones. Some good picks there. What we've got on the board now is a bunch of interesting guys, okay? At the running back position, Leonard Fournette, Marlon Mack, Derrick Henry, Darius Geis, and Devonta Freeman are the leaders in the clubhouse there. I will mention Damian Williams because I think he's going to have a great outlook for 2019, but he is such a question mark whether he's going to be there long term, what their outlook is beyond 2019, what their outlook is beyond week 5, that I'm hesitant to look at Damian Williams. Even though I like the guy, I think he could be a top 10 running back this year, I'm very hesitant. And then at the wide receiver position, we've got some very interesting names. Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Mike Williams, and I'll include Corey Davis in there, even though I'm not the biggest Corey Davis fan. At quarterback, we've still got Deshaun Watson, Andrew Luck, Baker Mayfield. All the quarterbacks are still on the board besides Patrick Mahomes, who went in the 1st round. So, interesting so far what is happening. I'll be very honest, if Deshaun Watson falls to me in the 5th round, I'm pulling the trigger. So let's see, because right now I have a wide receiver that is jumping off the board to me, and that's Chris Godwin. I would love to start my team young and upside and solid production. So I would have Alvin Kamara, James Conner, T.Y. Hilton, and Chris Godwin. However, I'm looking at the other side of the board, and I could have a guy who, if he returns to form, and Leonard Fournette is 24 years old, was a 1st-round running back, and, will get a shit ton of work. So, what do we do here, Dale?
Well, guys, honestly, I would probably take Darius Geis because he's a beautiful man, and I love him.
Okay, Dale. That's not the question I asked, but what do you think, John? Actually, guys, what I would like to say is I'm drinking tequila out of a straw and would like to let you know that junior mints are the best. Do you agree with that, Armando?
¿Qué?
All right, so we're going to go with the guy that I wanted here because my crew is all over the place today. So we're going to go ahead and take Chris Godwin here. I know some of you guys are scratching your head. We're going to go with the age, the upside, the potential, offense, a little bit of everything. This is a Dynasty league. I am in win now and win in the future mode. Alvin Kamara, James Conner, T.Y. Hilton, and Chris Godwin is the start of my team in a 12-team, half PPR league. I love it. You love it. Admit it. Just fucking admit it. Okay. All right. After that, Marlon Mack, Cooper Kupp, Leonard Fournette, Damian Williams, Devonta Freeman, and Baker Mayfield round out the 4th round. To start the 5th round, O.J. Howard, Jarvis Landry, Mike Williams, Sammy Watkins, Derrick Henry. Good pick, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Hate the guy and love the guy. I don't know what to do with that guy. Tyler Lockett. Wrap up all the picks before me. And like I said I would, 5th round is where I would consider a guy like Deshaun Watson because, hey, man, the guy has been lights out for the time that he's been in the league, and he's 23 years old. So let me just pull up real quick on EatSleepFantasy.com. It's a website. If you go to EatSleepFantasy.com, you can see fantasy finishes per year. Right on their banner, I mentioned this on every show, Fantasy Finishes Chart by John Chapman. It's right there in the middle. You just click that, and it shows you where players finished year by year, every year. So I'm going to take Deshaun Watson, and he was number 5 last year. I think he could do that again this year. He's super young, and he could do that into the future. So Deshaun Watson, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to run with it. I am starting my team like I never do, with a quarterback within the first 5 picks. And so, my team now is Deshaun Watson, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, T.Y. Hilton, and Chris Godwin. All right. Corey Davis on the board. Off the board after I picked Darius Geis. Andrew Luck, which was the other quarterback that I would have debated. I think Andrew Luck is probably he's one spot ahead of me for 2019. But I think if I'm going to take Dynasty into account, one spot in Dynasty in a redraft league, versus 6 years of age difference between 23 and 29 for Andrew Luck, I'll take Deshaun Watson there. To round out the 5th round, Tyler Boyd and Rashard Penny. To start the 6th round, Miles Sanders, Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson, Evan Ingram, and David Njoku. We got 2 tight ends that went off the board. I've got 1 tight end left of my first 2 tiers of tight ends in Keeper and Dynasty. But that tight end comes with a lot of risk in Hunter Henry, risk of coming back from major injury, risk of re-injury, risk of his quarterback being done after this year. But I do like Hunter Henry because I think he's going to be elite this year, and he's young, so there's the potential of him being good beyond that. But there's very interesting wide receivers on the board. Harry, the rookie out of New England. We've got Sutton in Denver. We've got Dante Pettis in San Francisco. And then a couple guys like DK Metcalf and Will Fuller in Seattle and Houston. We've got the interesting running back situations like Phillip Lindsay. What the fuck is going on in Denver at the running back position? Nobody knows. We've got San Francisco running backs, Tevin Coleman. Is he going to be the guy? I think so, but nobody knows. And then you've got the Tariq Cohen situation. But I've got a guy here that's going to be the epitome for me of someone who in Dynasty, a lot of people will drop in Mark Ingram because you probably got maybe 2 years of production. But realistically, you've got 1 good year left, I think. 1 really good year left of Mark Ingram. 1 top 24 year of Mark Ingram. And then we'll see what happens in 2020. But 2019 is going to be, I think, a great year for Mark Ingram. I am going to play the roll the dice game, though, because I will be okay if I don't get Mark Ingram and I get some of the other running backs that I have around him, like a Tariq Cohen or a James White or even a Tevin Coleman. I'll be okay if I get one of those guys. But I only got one tight end left in that second tier of tight ends for Dynasty in that group with Evan Ingram and David Njoku and O.J. Howard. And that's Hunter Henry. So I'm going to pull the trigger, fill out my starters, and hope that I can get a guy like Mark Ingram for my flex here. That is my logic behind this pick. I'm actively showing you the gears turning inside my head. And so I am going to draft Hunter Henry. Guys, this is Dale. Hold on, let me readjust my glasses. I don't think you can actively show the gears inside of your head. That's not physically possible. Dale's probably hating that I'm doing this, but it's part of the bit. Also, stay tuned for another diss track at the end of the show. I don't know if that's really happening, but we'll figure it out. All right, so I took Hunter Henry. So my starters now are Deshaun Watson at quarterback. At running back, I've got Alvin Kamara and James Conner. At wide receiver, I've got T.Y. Hilton and Chris Godwin. And at tight end, I've got Hunter Henry. I feel like I've got an elite team so far. And for the most part, it's a pretty young team and has tremendous upside moving forward long term. Now, that's not always the case of what I do in Dynasty, especially considering what I'm about to do with my next pick. And what I'm going to do with my next pick is exactly what I said I was going to do, because Mark Ingram is still on the board. Now, there's still guys there like Tariq Cohen, Kenyon Drake, Tevin Coleman, but those guys have so many more questions for 2019 than 29-year-old Mark Ingram. But Mark Ingram is coming into Baltimore, and I think he's going to have a tremendous year. And the Ravens didn't just pay him on a one-year contract. They paid him for 3 years. They paid him 3 years. Again, it's only $5 million a year, $15 million contract. But I expect him to be around for 2 years. If I can get a guy at my flex position in the middle of the 7th round, and the back half of the 2nd round, actually, and he's going to be a running back 2, when I already think I have 2 running back 1s for this year and moving forward, I'm taking Mark Ingram. 100% taking Mark Ingram, because I want to win now more than I want to win in 2020. I want to win in 2019 more than I want to win in 2022. So I'm going to take Mark Ingram. I'm going to start my team with ridiculous fucking running backs in Alvin Kamara, James Conner, and Mark Ingram. Solid wide receivers in T.Y. Hilton and Chris Godwin. And top 3 quarterback in Deshaun Watson and top 7 tight end in Hunter Henry. I'm a fucking beast at this. And right here, we're going to insert a drop that I haven't personally used in a while, but now I'm going to suck on my own dick.
Nah, I just suck on my dick. Suck on my own dick.
All right, now that I'm done doing that, I wish I could bend and do that. I'm not confident enough to make a poll out of that, but if you could, would you? Anyways, after Mark Ingram, DK Metcalf, I love the pick. It was my next guy in consideration. Jared Goff, Robbie Anderson, Kenyon Drake, and Matt Ryan. So we had a quarterback run, because now pretty much all the top 12, excluding Dak Prescott, is gone in terms of a dynasty quarterbacks. Eric Ebron, Austin Hooper, Jared Cook all went off the board. So pretty glad that I took my guy at tight end, because it was a tight end and quarterback run there. And Kyler Murray also went off the board. So not too many running backs and not too many wide receivers went off the board, because a lot of quarterbacks and tight ends went. And so I'm left in a position where I still get one of the other guys that I was considering that maybe is a younger guy at the running back or wide receiver position, or I can take a win now mode. The news that came out this week in Houston makes me stray away a little bit from Lamar Miller now that Duke Johnson has signed in Houston, so that's not going to be a pick for me. But Tariq Cohen, Tevin Coleman, Chris Carson, and James White all still on the board, and also guys like Jordan Howard and Ronald Jones still interesting. And later on, maybe we consider guys like Latavius Murray as our handcuff and potential production as well. So At wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Anthony Miller, James Washington, all some interesting guys there. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take another running back at the flex position, and I'm going to start 4 running backs probably this season, and I'm going to go ham. So my decision comes down to 2 guys here, and that's between Tariq Cohen and Tevin Coleman. All right, Tariq Cohen's 24 years old. He's going to catch a ton of passes in that offense. Yes, David Montgomery is there. David Montgomery is a rookie. We'll see how much of the workload he gets. And we've seen how good Tariq Cohen can be even with limited touches. Okay, so he's super interesting to me here. Super young, super effective with limited touches. He was a top 12 wide receiver last year in half or full PPR. And so that's something to consider here. I don't think he's going to be top 12, but definitely flex worthy week in, week out. Definitely going to have that value. So I will take Tariq Cohen. It's the safest bet, and I think has the upside of being a top 12 guy because we've already seen it. So my starting roster is now filled with Deshaun Watson, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, T.Y. Hilton, Chris Godwin, Hunter Henry, Mark Ingram, and Tariq Cohen. So now is where the interesting stuff starts to happen because I have a couple bench spots, and I am free to do whatever the fuck I want now. I am wide open, okay? And let's recap what's happened so far. Vance McDonald, Trey Burton, Sterling Shepard, Jameis Winston, Delaney Walker, and Julian Edelman finish out the round 8. No other running backs went after in round 8, so just tight ends, quarterbacks, and wide receivers there. But then in round 9, Royce Freeman, Chris Carson, Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, James White, Matt Brito, all the running backs gone. Okay? And so it's interesting time. What do we do? And I'm going to talk up a guy that I think has a very interesting outlook at the wide receiver position. He is one of my middle to late round picks that I'm getting in a lot of leagues. Okay? Very young. So he's a consideration for Dynasty, yes. However, that is not the main factor here. James Washington, for me, will be the wide receiver 2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019. Okay? James Washington is going to get his shot at being potentially what we saw from Juju Smith-Schuster. And so I don't think it's going to be to that level. But to be a guy on our bench and to be a guy in a Dynasty league, James Washington is a guy for me that I'm highly considering. But with that being said, there's quite a bit of picks between me and where James Washington is on the board. However, I am of the mind that I like to get my guys. And so on my bench, I want upside and I want my guys. So I'm taking James Washington, and I'm hoping later on there's a few other guys on the board that I could potentially get, but I'm taking James Washington right now. So after James Washington, Ronald Jones, who was a guy that I was interested in, went off the board. Damian Harris, Lamar Miller, Dante Foreman, Devin Singletary, Jordan Howard, Naheem Hines, Austin Eckler, motherfuck, went off the board, and Ito Smith. So that is an example of not getting your guy when you drafted a guy too early. Now, I reverted the pick. You're allowed to revert the picks here on this draft board, and tried to see what would happen if I took Austin Eckler first. And when I take Austin Eckler, the deeper guy available there, James Washington, is available. Now, I just did that for the purpose of just seeing what would have happened. I'm going to go back to my original pick and take James Washington in the back of the 9th. That's my pick, and that's who I wanted there. So I reached maybe a round for him, maybe 2 rounds for the guy that I want. Okay? And then to kind of wrap out this first mock draft available on the board, we've got, I'm not taking quarterback because I got a top 3 guy. I don't need one. Not taking a tight end because I'm super happy with who I have there. Available at the running back position, Latavius Murray, who I think could have a solid year and is my handcuff. Justice Hill, Duke Johnson, Jalen Samuels. And then at the wide receiver, Paris Campbell, Anthony Miller, Marquise Brown, Deebo Samuels, and Curtis Samuel, along with Dede Westbrook, are all still available. So I have 2 guys at the running back position and a couple of guys at the wide receiver position that I'm going to debate between. Latavius Murray is my handcuff. Yes, but Latavius Murray could also slide into that Mark Ingram role and be valuable even with Alvin Kamara there. That's 1. 2, Duke Johnson just signed with Houston. I know that Duke Johnson was disappointing for the last couple years, but he has the opportunity now to come into Houston with a guy who himself has been mediocre in Lamar Miller and compete for that job. So that's a guy that I'm keeping an eye on with this pick and is in strong contention for this pick. On the wide receiver side, we've got some high upside younger guys in Anthony Miller and Deebo Samuel. We have Dale's guy, Dede Westbrook, available here. But I think I talked myself into Duke Johnson. I think the guy has a legitimate chance to make an impact this year, and it'll give me this high upside guy on the bench. That's what I like, a guy who can be upside. And so that's what I'm going to fill my bench out, especially if I already have 2 solid flex options in Mark Ingram and Tariq Cohen. I'm going to go upside on my bench in Duke Johnson. So that's my pick here. That'll wrap out my picks for my starting team. And so I'm going to screenshot this and share it for you guys. But my mock draft team for a Dynasty league, Deshaun Watson at quarterback. My running backs are Alvin Kamara, James Conner are my starters. My flex running backs are Mark Ingram and Tariq Cohen with Duke Johnson on the bench. My wide receivers are T.Y. Hilton, Chris Godwin, and James Conner. And Hunter Henry is my tight end. I'm very happy with it. It's giving me a A- draft grade. I feel happy with that. Thank you for my A-, and I'm going to go ahead and take that and run with it. So, like I promised, we're going to just quickly jump into a couple of rounds of a Dynasty rookie-only league, because I just want to talk about a few guys, just a few guys. I really just want to talk about the first round, some considerations here. So let's go ahead and do that. However, before we do that, I do want to remind you guys about Nitrogen Sports and the oldest and number 1 Bitcoin betting sportsbook today. Again, make sure you check them out. You can do so right on our website. You go to easleepfantasy.com. They're right there on the main banner. And you can bet right on their website with Bitcoin. They've got a bunch of buy-in pools. They've got over $75,000 in guaranteed prizes for NFL Survivor pools, free pools, and free buy-ins with $2,000 in guaranteed prizes for free pools, which is awesome. And they've got all American sports that you can think of: NFL, NBA, NHL, soccer, tennis, mixed martial arts, esports, whatever the fuck you want to bet on. Nitrogen Sports has it. And I know there's a lot of places where sports betting and gambling is not allowed, but this is something that you can do in a lot of places because of how it's used. It's Bitcoin and the way that they're set up. You can play. You want to fucking put a parlay on 3 NFL games? Do it on Nitrogen Sports. Nitrogensports.eu. Check them out. Check them out for free. They've got free rolls or free buy-ins on these free pools. Check that out first. See how you like it. Try out the website. Try your hand at that, and then start putting some actual money on some of the. I mean, you're listening to a fantasy football podcast. Go bet on some football. All right, I'm gonna do live on air. Something that I'm hoping that John listens to, because he hates when people eat or drink with their mouth open, and fucking hates when I eat on the podcast. But I am a fat person, less of a fat person than I was a year ago, but still a fat person. and I'm going to drink on air. Because I'm talking by myself. We're 40 minutes in, and my throat hurts. My throat hurts more than Debbie's after a good Friday night. Hope you appreciated that joke, Dale. Love you, Debbie. Wink. Also, should we talk about Dale's sister too? No, never mind. His sister's super sweet. I'm not going to do that. Anyways, let's get into a Dynasty rookie mock draft. Woo, woo. Oh, okay. All right. So I randomized this, and in this 12-team league, it gave me the number one pick, which I love. Realistically, there are two guys that you want in this year's rookie draft, at least at the running back position. And that's Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery. Josh Jacobs seems to be everybody's number one, but I love me some David Montgomery this year, so this is difficult for me. Fuck. This is hard. That's what she said. I've gone with David Montgomery before here just to kind of diversify my portfolio. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs here. I do have them back to back. I have Josh Jacobs one, but I have taken David Montgomery for that upside. So I'll read you what happened in this first round draft. Oh, okay. Wait, I did not do a snake draft. I did a linear draft. So I got the first pick, and then I got the 13th pick. So that's beautiful. So Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery are your top three picks. I think the Miles Sanders at 2 is a little surprising because I think David Montgomery has more upside here. Harry, rookie wide receiver in New England, and A.J. Brown, the rookie wide receiver in Tennessee, round out your top 5 with Paris Campbell, Kyler Murray, Devin Singletary, who I like a lot and would probably be a top 6 guy for me in this Dynasty rookie league. Darrell Henderson, Damian Harris, Whiteside from Philadelphia. I'm not even going to try to say his full name. Okay, I'm going to try. Arcega Whiteside. I can do that. That's not that bad. Arcega Whiteside. JJ Arcega Whiteside. And DK Metcalf round out the top 12. DK Metcalf, I think, is a strong option for the future, and considering what's happening with injuries there, could potentially factor into some nice production in 2019. So I'm in a super interesting spot here because I've got 2 of my top 5 wide receivers in Marquise Brown and Deebo Samuels that are on the board, but all of the tight ends, which is so difficult in Dynasty, so difficult to figure out a valuable tight end in Dynasty. But TJ Hawkinson's on the board, Noah Fant is on the board. Those guys can work their way into some production this year and moving forward. This is tough. This is honestly tough. At running back, you've got Justice Hill and Alexander Mattison, Benny Snell Jr., I'm not as big a fan of any of those guys. You also got Bryce Love, who is in a crowded backfield with Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson. So I don't love his situation at all, even though I think he's a good talent. So right now for me, it's coming down between the 2 tight ends at the top, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, and then the 2 wide receivers on the board in Marquise Brown and Deebo Samuel. I have no idea what I prefer here. And this is live on air, my uncomfortable, am I going to go with the tight end? Am I going to go with the wide receiver? This is where it would just kind of depend on where I was needy in my Dynasty team. If I needed some upside at the wide receiver position, probably going to go with Brown or Samuel. If I had weak tight ends, I'm probably going to go Hawkinson or Fant and hope that one of them pans out in the next couple of years and becomes a worthwhile everyday top 12 starter at the tight end position, because that's so rare and difficult to find. Because of the uncertainty at the tight end position, I'm more than likely going to take a wide receiver here. I'm personally, This is a personal choice. Not typically a fan of taking tight ends in Dynasty that are rookies because it's not common for a rookie tight end to have production. And I, even in Dynasty, want to win now. I want to win now. I want to win this year. So I'm not a fan of taking tight ends in Dynasty unless I'm in rebuild mode. In rebuild mode, I'm looking 2 to 3 years in the future, and I'm looking at 2020, not 2019. So I might take a Hawkinson there. So it really would depend on my team. I'm letting you see, once again, these inner gears and hopefully explaining my thought process while not having a team in front of me, but just going through this rookie draft and mocking it. All right. So let's break down here a little bit of these two guys, Deebo Samuel and Marquise Brown, two of my top 5 wide receivers in Dynasty rookies. And compare them to, we have a early second round wide receiver, Deebo Samuel for San Francisco. San Francisco doesn't have a lot at the top for their wide receivers. Realistically, they've got Dante Pettis is probably going to be the number 1. He broke out a little bit in 2018. But there's a real shot that Deebo Samuel could be the number 2 guy. I am still a Jimmy Garoppolo believer. I still think that offense could be good. It could be a top half offense in the league. And so it makes me very optimistic for Samuel. On the other end, we've got Marquise Brown, who is a speed guy. I think can be incredibly productive, but you're talking about a Lisfranc injury that he suffered earlier this year. He was just cleared for off the non-football injury list, and he's back at practice, and he can play, but he's probably not going to be himself for the next few weeks. And so he's a rookie. This might take some time. And if I want a guy that could potentially break out in 2019, I'm looking more at Deebo than I am Marquise Brown. If I'm looking at a guy who could potentially be Deshaun Jackson in 2020, I'm looking at Marquise Brown. So it really is what your construction is, what you're looking for this upcoming year. I'm going to go ahead and take Deebo Samuel with my second pick in this rookie draft and take Josh Jacobs and Deebo Samuel to start my draft. And then the other wide receiver off the board that's still available here when all those other picks went, Miles Boykin, the other option, I keep adding S's to everybody's name for some reason, is still available on my next pick. After Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown was the very next pick, followed by TJ Hawkinson. Shocker, the other guys that I was considering. Noah Fant, Mecole Hardman, round out the beginning of the top of the second round. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do for that. I just kind of want to give you guys an idea of some of that rookie draft idea. Realistically, I'm not taking a tight end this year, even though Hawkinson and Fant have a lot of hype. I would rather invest in one of those wide receivers. I'd rather have a Deebo Samuel. I'd rather have a Marquise Brown. I'd rather have a DK Metcalf than a TJ Hawkinson. So, and then those guys, I think Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery should be the top 2 picks in all of your rookie leagues. So that's about it, guys. That's going to wrap up my part of the show. Make sure you check out our Twitter page at EatSleepFF. If you think I did anything wrong, don't put it on iTunes. I'm sorry. I did the best I could for a solo show. I apologize ahead of time for anybody who fucking made it 50 minutes through. You are a soldier. Actually, if you made it 50 minutes through just listening to me by myself, I don't know. What do you want? Like, DM me on Twitter and just tell me what you want. Message me on Facebook. Just tell me what you want. I'll do something. Don't ask for a hand job. That's not happening. It's too much work. It's too much work. Good night, guys.
Yeah, eat, Sleep, Fantasy. You rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs. Better follow the conversation with
John,
Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation. We doing what we like. Tune in every week. Guaranteed we get it hype. Fantasy football enthusiasts. I know you plan to be joining us on Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Yeah. Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Eat, Sleep, Fantasy.